Hey folks, and welcome to a belated Natalie sofa. I'm hoping to get this out tonight because it's already Wednesday. It's already late and I've had so many technical difficulties getting the remote monitor working on the camera. But that's a story for another time. Oh, sometimes things just don't work and it's so frustrating. Anyway, I was going to talk tonight about a little bit about the Lumix S9 that's coming out, a new compact full-frame camera, and focusing a little bit on the one main area where they're kind of challenging Fuji Film, which is pushing of real-time LUTs. So kind of this is going to sort of tell you what is a film simulation and what is a LUT. And in the simplest form, a film simulation is nothing more than a picture profile. It's slightly different to the sense of Fuji Film in that the baked-in things like classic chrome or Real Ace are very specific film looks that they put into the camera that are, you can adjust them obviously in camera because you can adjust the curves, the highlights, the shadows, the saturation, how soft or how sharp they are. So there's absolute adjustment on the Fuji film simulations, but equally there are film sims that you can just use out the box. And in a sense, you've got that on Panasonic. You've always had the ability to have picture profiles on Panasonic cameras. But with the advent of the S5 II and the S5 IIX and now the S9, you got real-time LUTs. So you could set, like I'm recording this on the natural profile, and I have tweaked the natural profile with a little bit of saturation, less saturation than normal. I've slightly softened the image a little bit, and I've I use what's called a black pro mist filter, which softens the image and makes the highlights a bit glowy behind me and around me, so it kind of softens the image overall. So that's how I get this look in camera. But equally, and a LUT can never get the look of what a filter does, but essentially what a LUT is a look. So you would set, say, the natural profile in your Lumix camera, and the LUT, which stands for lookup table, would apply a certain look. Now, if you're familiar with video editing, you can go into something like DaVinci Resolve. You might apply a predefined LUT. You can buy LUTs that people have made and in various pieces of software and give a predefined look. But of course, a LUT will give a different look depending on the base picture profile that you've applied it to. So, for example, if I've recorded video in natural and then I've got some video recorded in log, which is a flat format, the LUT will look different. This is why sometimes when we have a flat profile, we apply something called a Rec 709, which is a base sort of color correction LUT, which is designed for the flat video of that camera. Now, let's apply this to photographs. When a photograph comes out of the camera, it doesn't come out as a flat file, it comes out as a raw file. So it's just a raw image, but it'll come out looking like an exposed image. You look at that raw file in any software, it'll look like a normal picture if you exposed it correctly. For want of a better word, it'll look like the natural profile that I'm recording in now on the S5 does. Because the natural profile is kind of that, just a natural balanced look. You can record in log formats, which are very flat, no contrast, they look very desaturated. But you wouldn't normally do that with a photograph. So, in essence, you're probably going to use something the camera has built in, which is, you might apply things to like a Rec 709. You might set your camera to Rec 709, which is kind of a base color profile or natural, and apply the LUTs and the looks to that. So that's kind of how you apply them, and that's why I'm saying that what you get from a LUT may vary, whereas a film simulation is very much what you get. You can make your own custom ones, but they're always going to be based on one of the base simulations. So if I wanted to make my own simulation to have a certain look, I'd have to choose either Classic Chrome or Pro Neg or Real Ace or something like that, one of those profiles as the base profile, and then I'd tweak it in the camera from there. Now, what Panasonic are doing is, at the minute, to create a LUT is not really easy. It's quite a specialist job. you'd have to have something like DaVinci Resolve where you do all the tweaking of the curves and the contrast and the color and the white balance and the midtones, the shadow. You adjust all of these different things to get your look, and then you might be able to export that as a LUT or a lookup table. And then that LUT could be imported into the camera and used. So what they wanted to do is, and I don't know if this app's coming out for all the cameras, but they're going to bring out this app that you can have on a smartphone, and you're going to be able to create LUTs, share LUTs, and apply them and see what they're going to, you could go, oh, let's put the natural profile on in the app. I can't show you the app, unfortunately, because it's not out, so I can't show you what it's even going to look like. But I have watched a few reviews online that have seemed to imply that this is how it's going to work. And then, you were sharing your LUTs, you can import them into the camera and you can create a look. And the whole idea behind the S9 is that it's one of these content creators cameras. The idea is to create something out of camera. And although I do color grade, when I do these videos, I haven't always got time to color grade, especially now when I'm pressed for time and I'm in a hurry. So I've set up my lights here. I've got a light here, a light here. I'll have to do a behind the scenes video on this one day. And it gets dark outside now pretty much. So I'm fully on artificial light, and I've got some ambient warm lights, which are sort of a sort of yellowy colour. And then I've got some daylight, 2 daylight lights that illuminate me. And because it's a consistent lighting level, I know it's going to look precisely that way. The camera is set at a temperature of 4200 kelvins, and it's in the natural profile that I've tweaked with a -1 saturation and contrast, and it's at ISO 640 at the minute. I forgot to set that because it's I meant to set it to ISO 800, but I've been faffing around so much that I forgot to set the ISO. But the ISO is fixed at 640. I'm probably slightly underexposed because of what the camera's picking up and the lights around. But I could correct that in post if I wanted to. But the idea being that if you get your lighting right, which I've kind of not because I should be at ISO 800, but let's just pretend I did get it right. Oh, the stress you should have seen me getting all cross before. Would mean that I knew exactly what this look's going to be like. So it would be perfect situation where I just needed to create something and then push it out to production without doing any editing. Whereas on this one, I might decide to tweak the, I could, in post-process, I could go, oh, I'm just going to push the curves up in the mids just a little bit to give it a little bit more punch here, so that because I'm a little bit underexposed. I can see on my face here because I've got the monitor over here, and that's why I have the monitor. That's what I was having a problem setting up, and then I went and forgot to set the ISO. But I digress. As long as you set it up correctly, this is where LUTs come in, and this is, I think, why they want to push them. So, in essence, with this new style of camera, it's going to be very much like Fuji. In fact, there's been a lot of critics of it, but in Fuji you have to set it in camera, and if you're a big fan of Fuji cameras and JPEGs, you probably like that, and you're probably not going to be interested in this. But I'd love to hear your thoughts of if you had an app to design film simulations, like they were going to get an app for the Lumix S9 to design LUTs that you can then send to your camera straight away. Would that make things easier for you? Because what you've got to think is that the camera screen is quite small. You don't necessarily want to waste the battery. But if you could sort of download a picture, a RAW file, and you could go, oh, well, I'd really like to get what it looks like to have this film simulation on. And instead of doing it on the camera's small screen, you could do that film simulation or a LUT on the app, as well as the RAW converter in the air. Because, of course, both Lumix and Fuji support LUTs, film simulations, in their RAW converters. So you could take a RAW, which is why I always say JPEG shooters should shoot RAW as well, because what you do is you take your RAW in camera, you don't have to do any post-processing. Again, this is where the LUTs come in. You've designed your LUT on your camera, and you go, well, I shot RAW to get the maximum out of the camera, and so I can apply different looks as well. Because remember, a JPEG's a one shot. That's it. You take it, done. You can change the look, but it's a lot harder. But you could then go, oh, I've got 5 different LUTs I've created, 5 different film simulations. I'm going to apply those and say, oh, I like that one. You get your RAW file, you apply it, you create a JPEG, you're done. No editing. And I know a lot of the folks who watch my channel are JPEG shooters. And I'm wondering if, if you can get used to the smart format, whether this would apply to you, because essentially the S9 is about the same size as X-T4, X100V. In fact, it's slightly smaller. It's smaller than a Lumix S9 II. It doesn't have the bump. I've got a picture of it here to bring up. And you can see that it is quite a small, compact little body. It doesn't have a mechanical shutter, but they do say they've improved the readout speed of the sensor. And indeed, I've read that the camera is supposed to do full phase detect autofocus at, I think, 60 frames per second video on full sensor readout, which it doesn't do on the S9 II and 2X. I did watch a video which seemed to imply the rolling shutter did indeed seem to be less, but it's still there. And sometimes with electronic shutters in certain fluorescent lighting scenarios, obviously not here because video is the electronic shutter, you can get problems with, certain lights. You might be taking pictures in the city and you're doing street photography. You might get some issues with certain frequencies of lights that flicker and can cause problems with electronic shutters. And you might have to experiment with the correct shutter speed to get around that. But it's an interesting idea what they've done. And it'd be something I think, if the electronic shutter turns out to be good and you can take pictures with it, from point of view of travel, even though I wouldn't necessarily use the creatory side of it and the TikTok side of it, which I think is who they're aiming it at, having something that's only 400 grams at full frame versus 750 grams, does that sound much an S9 II weighs? 750 grams. I think. I'll double check and bring that up on the screen, the actual weight. But I think it's about around about that. That's a lens. That's a small, lightweight lens. Which brings me on to the thing, they brought 2 new lenses out. And there's a little pancake thing, which I think is 26 millimeters? Little pancake lens anyway. And just manual focus. I think it's like a fixed focus. I think it's focused at infinity. Like a smartphone. So you can just basically point the camera at something and take a picture. But they've brought an 18mm to 40mm out. And it's an f4.5 to 6.3, which is not bad if a landscape walk around. And when you think about it, it's half the size of the current kit lens, the 20 to 60. It's tiny. So you've got this camera, right? You're a hiker, and you want a little compact lens that does the job, and lets you vlog and record yourself and do everything. You could have a camera that weighs 400 grams, and then a lens that's a really compact lens. I'm not sure the weight of this new lens. I'll have to, I'll bring a picture up, and I'll see if I can find the weight. If I can find the weight, because there's a little detail in a minute, I'll put it on the screen with a picture of the lens. Looking at the picture of that lens, I can't imagine it's more than about 300 grams. You're talking about having a camera and a body that can do landscape and walk around, that weighs less than just an S9 II body. And that's the appeal for me to the camera, is it's super lightweight. And I've always wanted a camera that I can drag around that's full frame, because the image quality out of the full frame camera is fantastic. And it always does best the Fujis. Even though the Fujis are good, they're not quite as good on the image quality as the Lumixes. They're not full frame sensors. So it's a very interesting proposition, but I'd really be keen to think what you guys think about the LUTs now. Do you understand what a LUT is a little bit more? It's just a file, call a lookup table with information that changes the look of a picture. Very similar. They're more or less the same as a film simulation. You could probably just tweak more in them. And what they've done is they're making them easier to create. They're making it from, editing them in DaVinci Resolve, which is quite a complex program if you've never do editing before, to having an app with some sliders. You go, oh, I'll slide this here. Oh, I like that. Well, have that. And it save that. Center camera. And that is quite a different proposition, I think. Because in Fuji, it's like that with your Fuji. You just go and you edit a few rudimentary settings. But even on Fuji, you've got to kind of know what to highlight, what to shadow. They're fairly self-explanatory, but some people may not know. Some people might not know what contrast is. If you don't ask below, contrast is just how far the brightest colours and tones or luminance in images, you increase the contrast, you stretch those bright and dark parts out, which is why it tends to look contrasty, deep shadows. You squash the contrast down and it tends to start looking quite flat, the image, and pale. And that's because you're squashing all the colours down. That's what flat profiles look like when you record log. They have very low contrast. And it's understanding those technical bits that some people, I'm not trying to put people down, but some people just want to take a picture and they don't really want to care what all the gubbins and settings do. They go, I just want to slide the contrast slider, or whatever they call it, the harshness slider, until it has a look that I like. And that's the beauty of the apps, I think, is that it almost brings it to the masses without becoming technical. Because as much as it's good to learn about things, I think some people just don't want to be technical and you put them off. So have a look at the camera. I think I can link it in the description below to maybe Panasonic are on their website now, and have a look. Would you buy it? What do you think of it? How does it compare to Fuji? Do you still like film simulations? So many questions. It's a brave move by Panasonic, I think. There's been a lot of criticism of the camera, but it might work. I hope it does, because I really have a soft spot for my Lumix cameras. I've always been one to support the underdog, as it were. And for a long time, Fuji and Lumix have been the underdog of the camera world. But maybe it's their time to shine. And maybe appealing to what the market is will help them do that. But I think this is not just an opportunity for the TikTok creators. I think the LUTs used via an app will very much benefit you guys who love shooting JPEGs and maybe just messing around a little bit in your phone where it's dead easy to do. You can pull the things down to your phone and go, oh, I've taken this as a RAW. Let me just do these 3 looks I've got. Oh, it looks better in my golden sunshine autumn look. LUT. And save it out, and there it is, done. Now, if you'd done that as a JPEG, you'd have struggled to, you can apply LUTs to them, but it's harder because the JPEG has a baked-in look, whereas a RAW file doesn't. It's natural, as we start with. So, plenty to discuss there. Thank you for bearing with me. We've finally got there, and this is probably going to come out about midnight, because I've got to edit this next, but it should be fairly straightforward to edit this because it's just a talking heady one with a few pictures of the camera. So thank you for bearing with me. I hope this is useful because this is quite an exciting time, I think, for cameras, and it's certainly be a camera I'd be interested in trying. And there's some tryout days at WEX Photography, and I might go down on my lunch break tomorrow to have a look at the camera. I just want to have a look at it, and having a tryout day seems a good way to have a try, because I'm in no position to afford the camera at the minute. It will probably be next year before I could even contemplate that. But I also want to consider the option of trading in my S5 II, because I have an S5 IIX, which I would never trade in, so I love that. But would I trade in an S5 II against an S9? Now there's food for thought. If you had an S5 II, would you go for a smaller camera, and why? Comment below. See you all later, folks. Bye.